What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to some daily content where you get to watch me suffer. And this is a workout that some of you might have been around for in 2016, so you get to watch me suffer through a old workout that I'm gonna put a little twist on, put a little curveball on. So, without further ado, let's go and get started. We are in 3, 2, 1, getting it. What are we doing here? This is kind of a curveball play on Regional Nate, which is a curveball play on regular Nate. So that's a kind of a long change up. There's a couple change ups here. So let's talk about each change. To be honest, Nate is a named workout. Nate is a workout involving muscle ups, handstand push-ups, and kettlebell snatches. And I'm not gonna go into what it actually is because I honestly don't recall actually what Nate is. It's either 10 rounds for, I think actual Nate is actually a 20-minute AMRAP of 2 muscle ups, 4 strict handstand push-ups, like 6 snatches, I think. I honestly don't recall. Or it might be 2, 4, 8. I think it's 2, 4, 8. And in 2016, Dave Castro took Nate and made a regional version, right? He called it Regional Nate, and it was the second workout of the 2016 regionals, RIP regionals, and it ended the first day. And so Regional Nate was 4 strict muscle ups, 7 strict handstand push-ups, and then 12 kettlebell, single arm kettlebell snatches. And so 6 and 6 per arm. I don't recall the rule if you could change it. I think you can change it as much as you want, but you had to do 6 on each arm, however you wanted to do it. Now, in 2016, it was one of my least favorite workouts at that regional event. I was not able to finish it in 20 minutes. I believe I finished the workout. I just don't believe I got to the mat at the end. Or maybe I was like 1 snatch shy, whatever the case might be. I actually raced Alex Anderson at the end, but I think he finished it, but I didn't finish it. And so, for most of you that know me or been around for a while know that I'm not great at strict muscle ups, never have been. And so we've been working on them quite a bit, considering I haven't been able to squat for the last month very much leading up to the game. So we went, well, let me clarify. We haven't been working on a ton of like strict muscle ups. Like we're always doing strict muscle ups. We are instead working on upper body pull, right? And so upper body pull ties into the fact of the pull for the strict muscle up. And so we've been working on that, and that has transferred over very well to strict muscle ups. And so I had actually mentioned to Andrew like a couple weeks ago that I'd like to retest Regional Nate again because I felt that I could finish it or do much better. Well, I guess finish it because do much better would be finishing it considering I was very close at regionals. And so we decided to test it. This was yesterday, this is on July 24th. Right now it's July 25th. And so, we're kind of tapering it, and not tapering per se, but we're kind of leading up to the game. So this is a good workout, the test leading up to the games. I don't think we're gonna see strict muscle ups in the games or probably anymore, only because, to be honest, like strict muscle ups kind of remind me of like strict ring handstand push-ups. Like there's so much play into what the judge deems hip movement, or what the judge deems knee bend, or the judge deems this and judge deems that. And so it's always a lot up to the judge on the field of play, and they have to make the decision on the fly. Whereas, like counting double unders is easy, or counting thrusters is easy. Whereas if you give a judge a movement that has a lot of points of performance per se to it, and kind of like standards and areas of critique, then it leaves it a lot up to the judge to determine if it's a good rep. So that's why I don't think you're probably gonna see this in a competition, or strict muscle ups in a competition very often. Anyways, so we've been working on my strict muscle ups quite a bit, and Andrew decided to program it, so we threw it in yesterday, July 24th, and I actually felt really good. I had a hard first session, and I actually felt really good coming into this session, and so I decided, you know what, my strict handstand push-ups have felt pretty solid as of late, and so I decided, you know what, I think I'd like to test myself. I think I'd like to see if I can finish this workout with a deficit on the handstand push-up. And so instead of doing a regular strict handstand push-up of just 7, from the floor like we did at regionals. Instead, I'm doing a 4-inch deficit, which you can see the plates in the back on the mat. And it's inside a regular 24 by 36 inch box, which I don't go very wide anyways, to be honest. The other switch up is, and you could make the argument on if it's easier or harder, it's totally up to you. But the other switch is the kettlebell, I switched for a dumbbell. So instead of doing 6 and 6 on a kettlebell snatch with a 70, I kept the weight the same, but instead we're using a 70-pound dumbbell and I'm alternating every rep. So you can make a different argument there, like obviously the kettlebell has to go less distance, right? It's just going to my hip pocket, whereas the dumbbell has to go all the way down to the floor, so I'm hinging, so that might be a little bit longer for a rep, but at the same time I can alternate every rep on the dumbbell, which makes it a little bit maybe less grip intensive. You know, you can make that argument. So it's definitely up to play. Like, I met the deficit. Obviously there is a deficit. It's a lot deeper than a regular strict handstand push-up, so it is harder, but I changed up the kettlebell for the dumbbell, and like I mentioned, you can make an argument to make it easier or harder. I don't really know. I think it's kind of like pretty semi-even there. So we are in the middle of my third round, starting my third round, I believe. And so if you want to finish the time cap for a 20-minute workout, it gives you 2 minutes a round. Now, how did I approach this differently than how I approached it at the 2016 regionals? I was a young pup in 2016, a young pup, even though it was only like 3 years ago. I was a little younger, and so I approached it a lot differently. And sometimes it happens when you get into a competition where you feel the need to go fast because people are watching you and you want to do well, and you're in regionals, yada yada yada. When you need to take into consideration that pacing is the key in a workout like this. So, yes, could I start the workout and knock out as many sets unbroken of strict muscle ups of 4s as possible? Yes, I could. You know, maybe I could do like 3, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds unbroken. But the fact of the matter you have to ask yourself is, will my form break down at some point, and will fatigue set in and my upper body pull, and then will that affect the rest of my rounds if I slow down? Probably. And that's actually what happened in 2016. I started out with 4s because I got caught up into the atmosphere. You know, I started out with 4s and did 4s for a couple rounds and then fell apart. And if some of you might remember, if you were there watching, I have a tendency for my left hand to pop out when I come through, when I pull through. It pops out to let me through, and then I pull it back, and kind of like an iron cross. And that's not very good, honestly, for form or for your shoulder health. And so that's what happened in regionals, and that slowed me down. So here, I decided if I want 2 minutes per round, if you look at my first round, it was pretty on. My first couple rounds were pretty on point. At being about, they were about. If you were trying to get for 2 rounds, it's about 40 seconds per movement, right? 40 seconds plus 40 seconds is 120. Yeah, it's about 40 seconds per movement. So now, granted, my handstand push-ups are a little bit faster than 40 seconds probably, but between the walking and transition, it's about right. 40 seconds per movement, it's a pretty good baseline comparison. So when you look at strict handstand push-ups, if I want to do 4 in 40 seconds, I decided that the fastest way for me was to do 2, rest about 15 to 20 seconds, and then do 2 more, because each set of 2 took about 10 seconds, or 8 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds. So I'll do 2 strict muscle ups. I'll rest about 15 to 20 seconds, depending upon which round you're watching, right? Like, it might be even more as you go further into the rounds. And then I'll knock out my other 2 strict muscle ups in about 10 seconds or so. And so that was the goal, was to get every movement done in 40 seconds, which puts me at about 2 minutes per movement, or 2 minutes per round. Now, the first couple rounds are obviously going to be faster because I'm moving a little bit quicker. Whereas near the later rounds, I start taking more than 2 minutes per round, and that becomes obvious. And that really comes down to like the amount of time. It wasn't because the movement slowed me down. I was tired, even though you'll see me rest a little bit in the strict handstand push-ups. It really was affected because of the sweat, me chalking and trying to wipe off my wrists. Just around here, around this wrist spots right here, it became really wet, and that's really detrimental because in your false grip on the strict muscle, I need that place to be dry. And so the sweatbands around my wrist worked great. I'm not gonna lie, the first couple rounds, but you know, they're not perfect. Like around like round 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like is sweating around my wrist, I need to wipe it off, and that's where I kind of waste a lot of time. But you have to at that point, because I'm not gonna jump up there with wet wrists, because if your wrists are gonna be wet, that increases the likelihood you can tear a little bit. And so I don't wanna, and I already teared on my wrists already, but I didn't wanna tear any more than I had to. So, for those of you watching, let's actually talk about some good scaling options. And give me a second, I'm actually gonna look up what NATE is. NATE CrossFit workout, because I wanna make sure I get this right for you guys. Here we go. Okay, NATE, so it's actually a hero workout, and I apologize for not knowing this previously. It's a Chief Petty Officer Nate Hardy, which was, he obviously died in combat operations. NATE is complete as many rounds as possible in 20 minutes, so it's a 20-minute AMRAP, like I mentioned, of 2 muscle-ups, 4 handstand push-ups, so kipping, and 8 2-pooed kettlebell swings. So it's not even a snatch, so I was actually wrong there. So, in case you guys are wondering, NATE is a hero workout. That's a 20-minute AMRAP, 2 muscle-ups, so it's honestly like half of everything pretty much in this workout here. 2 regular muscle-ups, you can kip it, strict it, whatever you want to do. 4 regular handstand push-ups and 8 70-pound or 2-pooed kettlebell swings. American, of course. So, for those of you looking at this workout and thinking, I want to do this workout, but I want to scale it, I can't do, maybe I can't do certain portions, I would say the first option is just do NATE, right? That's a great hero workout. Do NATE, which, like I already mentioned what it was. If you can't do muscle-ups, because sometimes that's the delineating factor between if you can do it or if you can't do muscle-ups, then just sub it out with maybe like a banded muscle-up of some kind, or maybe like ring rows and pull-ups, whatever you need to do. It's a great workout. I mean, there are options out there to scale it. Now, if you can do muscle-ups, then I would recommend do NATE as a scaling option if you can't do strict muscle-ups. So if you can do strict muscle-ups, if you feel pretty proficient at strict muscle-ups, then I would say do regional NATE, which of course is 4, 7, and 12, like I mentioned previously in the video. But if you want to do this workout, and if you feel really proficient in your strict handstand push-ups, then try this one. And this one, of course, is still 4, 7, and 12, but instead of a regular just 7 strict handstand push-ups, you're instead doing a 4 deficit strict handstand push-ups at 4 inches. Now, again, the counter argument can be made, is a dumbbell easier than a kettlebell? I think it's easier in a sense that you can alternate it, but I think that the distance for the dumbbell to move is further than a kettlebell, so there's the difference therein that lies there. So those are scaling options I was giving you guys, is start out with NATE, which is a great hero workout, move on to regional NATE, and then from there move on to this regional NATE plus. I'm calling it just essentially a deeper deficit. Let's see here. So you can obviously tell I'm obviously moving it. I'm going every round, I'm moving it. And I'm supposed to, I think I remembered at some point in the next round, but in regionals, we moved our kettlebell forward every round, and it got further and further away. So technically, so I set it up like that. I have 5 cones here, right? And so I'm going round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I repeat 6 at the orange cone again, so I go 5, 6, and then I'm going back 7, 8, 9, 10. It's my fault. I knew what I was supposed to do, but I forgot it in the workout, and I think you'll see it in this round that I actually do it. But I should actually, especially in this round, I shouldn't just walk to the dumbbell and start snatching it. I should actually walk to the end of the cones and then walk to the dumbbell, if that makes sense. Kind of like I'm mocking the fact, I'm trying to mock it that the floor is longer, right? That's moving away. So I should walk to the end of the cones, the orange cone, and then walk the dumbbell, do my snatches, move to the next cone, and then walk essentially towards the camera to the last cone, and then walk back. Essentially what I'm trying to do is mock, and then not mock like in a bad way, but like mock up the fact that the floor is getting further and further away, the dumbbell is getting further and further away from me on the floor. Where I think I forgot that in the first, in my 7th and 8th round. I think I remember it in my 9th and 10th round. So forgive me there. If I'd had someone counting for me or saying something to me, like, hey, make sure you go to the further cone, I remembered that, but I honestly forgot in the middle of the workout. I might remember here. We will see. And nope, I don't. I think it might be my next round, I remember it. So, the other thing is, let's talk about the strict handstand push-up. So, I chose a 4-inch. I actually had, if you look closely underneath my whiteboard over there, you might see some extra comp plates over there. I actually had it like 6 or 7 inches, but I decided to back it down to 4 because I really wanted to finish it and have that intensity. And that's a discussion, you know, we've had a lot of, is the idea of make sure you choose a height or a weight or a rep scheme or something where you can keep the intensity high. And in this case, I wanted to keep the intensity high and not have to break super often. And so if I had done a 6 or 7 inch deficit, I might have been able to go unbroken through, you know, rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but then maybe near the end rounds, then I probably wouldn't have finished it. I might have had to come off the wall or do singles or rest a bunch. And I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to focus on knocking out the reps as unbroken without resting as much as I possibly can. And so that's why I decided on 4. I had the option going to 6 to 7 inches, but I said, you know what, that's not gonna do me any good. I wanna finish this. I want that mental kind of like, yeah, like confirmation, like you're better than you are in 2016. And it would have been hard to have compared that to 2016 had I done a 6 or 7 inch and not finished it. Whereas here I can kind of compare it pretty close 1-to-1, even though again I'm using kettlebell or dumbbell. Switch out. Like I mentioned, in 16, my strict muscle ups were the downfall of this workout, and I fell apart. And so for here, honestly, really the only difference I felt is for a win for this workout was the fact that I decided to pace it better. Instead of going out hot and saying, okay, I'm gonna keep up with everybody, I decided to instead say, okay, I'm just going to, here, I'm actually doing it right here. I decided to just play it cool, calm, and collected and do what I know I need to do to finish, or do what I need to know that I know I can do, if that makes sense. Essentially, like I'm not pushing the envelope and falling apart, I'm pacing it in a good way for me. And like I mentioned, if you're looking to improve your strict muscle ups, a lot of things we've done in the past, you know, it's not necessarily like, oh, to improve on strict muscle ups, you have to just do a crap ton more strict muscle ups. That's not true for pretty much any movement in CrossFit, pretty much. You can improve on a movement like strict muscle ups, or improve on snatch, or improve on pull-ups, or improve on whatever by doing other things. I guess the only counter example to that is double unders. The only way to really improve on double unders is to do double unders. But in this case, a lot of ways to improve your strict muscle ups is to improve your upper body pulling. And for me, that's the ability to pull to my chest. A lot of times I wasn't able to pull to my chest all the way and keep good tension. I could like pull to my chest really fast, but then I'd lose tension, right? It would just like pull and slack out. But instead, it's the idea of tempo and pulling to your chest in a smooth motion and having the ability to pause at your chest. So we've done a lot of ring rows and basic movements. Like you might think, oh, ring rows are stupid. Like that's just stupid, what a waste of time. You're an elite athlete, you know, per se, and you're still working on ring rows. But to be honest, like guys, like ring rows and basic stuff like that is still important for athletes. It's still important to have it. I mean, this is a prime example. Like in 2016, I couldn't finish this workout. I probably didn't do as many ring rows as I should have done. In 2019, I can finish this workout with harder movement for strict muscle ups or strict handstand push-ups. And the reason for that is because my strict muscle ups felt a lot better. Why did they feel a lot better? They felt a lot better because I practiced them, not necessarily practiced the movement and just the movement, but I practiced pieces of it and improved on the pieces of the movement. In that case, it was my upper body pulling, which I improved at. And then it goes for a lot of ways to improve it, you know, whether that be tempo ring rows, strict ring rows, keeping ring rows, you know, any kind of ring row where you're pulling, upper body pulling. And then that also goes into like sled pulling, like pulling sleds yourself hand over hand. We do a lot of those, and those are really difficult, but really good to have. You know, when I say hand over hand sled pulls, I mean like you have a sled out with weight on it, you have attached a rope to it, and you're pulling slow and controlled to your body with the sled. You know, you're not kipping it and using your hips, but instead you're focusing on that pull and that singular isolated arm. So there we have it. We are finishing it up. I should be done right there. And that's it. I was able to finish it. I'm actually pretty impressed. I'm actually pretty proud, to be honest. Here we go, hold on. It wasn't as bad as 2016. The dumbbell might have been a little bit easier, but handstand push-up was harder for sure. Guys, appreciate you guys watching. If you guys want to watch a video that's similar to this, click right here. Other than that, have a great day. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you guys later. See ya.